Cutscene/Chapter 9. Knowledge from the Chi Temple. Into the mystic flute. Enter the temple and we get the message. Bob is off out of the city and traveling on his motorbike on a country road with a big white Buddha on a hill in the distance and with Trukin music blaring in his helmet. He reaches the bottom of the hill and parks his bike near some steps going up into the trees. A sign on the hill as he climbs to the temple compound says in many languages, "Leave it all behind." He strides out with purpose up the steps into the trees. It is quiet with only a few tropical bird sounds mixing in with the tranquil atmosphere of a light breeze blowing through the leaves that sounds like they are making whispering noises. At about 3/4 of the way to the top and the big Buddha, he arrives at some open-walled buildings with many golden statues of different Buddha types around them. Around the central buildings the area is surrounded with small what look like one-person tree houses with trees being part of the stilt construction. There are also other long houses on stilts further out into the trees on the hillside. None of this can be seen from a distance below the big Buddha, and it appears like a magical village with a clumps of tropical hill forest mist dancing through the bushes. There are no monks or anyone around. It is mid-morning, so Bob assumes the monks are collecting alms and will be back by midday. He sits down, eats an apple, looks around at the peaceful environment and dozes off as he has been on a long trip. He is awoken by movement. The monks have been stepping over him as he has slept with his feet across a path, and one notices him wake up and looks back and smiles at him. They have met before, but as a threesome. The monks ask where are his friends, as they always seem like they are glued together. Bob breathes heavily, stands up and makes a way and bows, then looks up at the old wizened monk in dismay and says it's a difficult story. The monk tells him to come and sit with him. They sit and Bob tells him that the girls disappeared, but it is suspicious as he has been investigating something that seemed to disturb them, and they left without making any further contact with him, as if they had been abducted. Bob asks if he can stay in the temple for a while as he would like to learn more about Chi. A friend of his sung its praises after working in a nearby traditional massage conservation school, and his girlfriends are true developed martial artists with a Chi core. The monk says he thinks he knows about his friend and asked if he was okay, as though he had died. Bob says he is okay but got sick and has not heard from him for some time. The monk tells Bob in order to be one with the Chi he must learn the balance of all things and the necessity to interpret the outcome of complex events as a collection of simple events. He must learn to see things in the pieces as part of a whole and the whole as part of the pieces, as there will always be more pieces to the whole we cannot always see or interact with, like dark matter. He says the pieces are greater than the whole, as once they get out they will never get back into the can. The whole traps the parts which are greater and need to be set free. Bob looks confused and the monk says don't worry, work hard and that will provide its own return. The monk goes on saying he will soon realize the whole is not greater than the parts, but only looks that way if all things are not taken into account. It only appears greater in situations when many hands appear to move together, like in an ant's nest, but when they don't they still exist and turbulence reigns, so a group herds itself without direction and thousands drown in rivers, like in wildebeest migrations or ants climbing the wrong tree or bees swarming into an area that cannot sustain them, or locust swarms having consumed everything dying in the dirt. The same is assumed for lemmings, but they don't actively kill themselves, but when communities grow too big go through what can be seen as a natural cell division to form new groups. Chi allows individuals to be part of an enlightened whole, but not more than that whole. Bob is told that the process is slow but certain, it can be achieved in a day, and if he follows the path of the teachings it will provide him with the enlightenment he seeks. The monk says he must not seek enlightenment directly, as peripheral vision is more powerful than direct focus. While he learns it will find him instead. Bob follows the monk and joins in with a group chanting and in meditation with the monks, and later is led to a treehouse where he climbs the steps and enters and opens a bedroll and a wooden pillow that he puts his towel on and lays down relaxed and stares at the wooden ceiling of bare logs. The windows are open but covered with net to exclude mosquitoes, so the sounds of the trees are close, and he relaxes to these sounds until he closes his eyes and sleeps. Next day as the dawn breaks, Bob is woken by the monks chanting and making tones with singing bowls or gongs and clacks on the wooden fishhole sounding like punctuation. He goes outside, scoops water over himself from a rainwater barrel outside by his steps and goes to join them. After the chanting, Bob then helps sweep the paths and temple floors while the monks go out to the villages and collect alms. Everybody helps in doing social activities if accepted within the temple. When the monks return, he eats some with them at the same time, joining a group who are learning about chi from an old and wizened monk. After they have done the cleaning and washing up with the group, Bob and the others sit in an arc around some pictures of chi flows in the human body. The monk explains that to be in tune with chi means acquiring some special qualities, and that although nobody knows exactly what chi is, chi appears as a generalization of a group of tuned bodily flows, blood/lymph/synovial/and nervous fluid systems, and an unquantifiable mind, but by all the effects that have been observed over thousands of years it shows it can be tuned. The statistically correlated success in cures and abilities used by a greater quantity of human beings in the East over many thousands of years than those who use recent Western medical techniques over the past 100 years, simply by weight of numbers, is the example of its presence. Bob is reminded of his girlfriends who have shown their chi focus ability by they both being top Dan black belt martial arts, film stunt and performance artists. The monk explains snap judgments often lead to regrets for those whose only exercise is jumping to conclusions, and the chi training cannot bypass the immersive steps as there are no intuitive leaps that can be taken to grasp it. Choices allow us the ability to modify the strength of how we are either affected or not. To recognize being affected by the fates that fall across our path, even to accept and enjoy our final fate, the inevitable destiny that befalls us all. We can choose to go with the flow or destroy ourselves by wasting time on trying to avoid the inevitable and miss out on enjoying the delicious part of our lives. Bob compares the similarity of this teaching with that his girls have given him. Bob gains more and more ability to interpret what is going on around him as he begins his learning of meditation on the path to getting in touch with the chi within him. After a lot of exercises pursuing perfection, he is very wobbly learning the slow Tai Chi movements in an exercise of body and mind as he is with the stillness and concentration that yoga brings. They spend hours perfecting the pushing hands or Tu as a two-person interactions. The monks are continually assessing his ability to be able to follow the movements to their satisfaction of perfection. Bob falls into meditation when he is physically exhausted and compares his feelings against the unbalancing circumstances his boss provides in his job. He recalls many circumstances revolving around the continued cycle of capitalist social sabotage they cause in order to prey upon the winners and losers, playing both ends of the results of the sabotage to maximize on news stories. It is their hidden aspect of creating sabotage by creating inequality but hiding behind and striving for equality banner that he saw in the people he recently interviewed and is disgusted with it. Bob considers balance and the need to want everything to work out fair and square, spending time trying to maintain balance and judging the acceptability of a situation by its apparent equilibrium. Balancing his body helps with him balancing his mind. There is a perceived capitalist downside to balance, that without imbalance there is no motivation and hence no progress, but huge disparity also causes a greater loss by demotivating communities, and social sabotage always has a focus that creates huge disparity. Those that support equality being a target for investigating what is going on in their background, their backstory, and how they can benefit from it. It may be to just get wingers out of their lives, but at a corporate level there is always money involved. And after all, if you have wingers and placate them, they will only come up with something new to moan about, so it's always best to disconnect the wingers first. Fortunately, the answer is not to flatten any imbalance, as that ends up with a bland situation. The solution is to customize equality, very much like the rules of motor racing that set the formula, or a set of working practices and guidelines that are followed where all do well but some can do a little better, but not by much, so they get their kicks but not so much as to demotivate the group. This is the easy to learn but hard to master paradigm, the mastery being its own reward. However, in motor racing, the money involved, as with all professional sports, has become rude and a disgusting result of human greed, no longer the focus of the sport at all, but of the monetary rewards and the imbalance pushed and promoted by mainstream media, so that the average member of society is closed out from participating. To be a sports star, one needs a large dose of genetic luck, in physiological construction, as well as very selfish mental focus and drive in an area that provides overpaid celebrity, just like a winner at some genetic casino. Definitely not a direction towards social communal prosperity, but the promotion of a despicable elite who flaunt their position and sicken most intelligent people who look at them and their retarded followers like a herd of bovine creatures. It is bad to use inequality as a motivator. It is better to create shared prosperity with balanced policies to ensure the provision of the primary basic needs of food and shelter, with prevention of disaster by having contingencies to combat the potential of natural disasters first. Add this together with taming or rejecting those unintelligent animal-based predatory humans who take, steal and hoard rather than contribute, and a community stands a chance of sustained survival. The policies must be community first, self second if group survival is to be achieved. At least with natural disasters, contingency policies can be implemented that nullify catastrophic failure. Not so with selfish greed that has forced itself into social controlling positions that allow an elite greed machine to steal from the social community. The self-centered greedy person thinks there is a possibility that there may not be enough to go around, so they push the system by robbing Peter to pay Paul. They move resources back and forth in a way that stresses the whole system, and that activity might crumble from the strain, as all this does is create increased disorder, stressing rather than integrating with the surroundings. The erratic buying and selling in global stock markets that are now following like headless chickens the activity of high-speed trading software algorithms without any human overview, or ability to follow them, of their effect on market behavior. It has become a software algorithm economy rather than the market-driven economy that some myopic pundits still believe it is. A building is not built, or a tree does not grow and give an appearance of apparent order without first causing great disorder from the surrounding resources from which it is made. A fundamental thermodynamic law that entropy or disorder is in a state of continued maximization. A balanced interpretation is important. It is important to flow with the increasing entropy, moving with the disorder rather than waste energy fighting against it. Bob sits back in meditation and thinks the CHI teaching is a far cry from the way his boss performs by creating inequality, usually by bypassing the established communication protocols and issuing out-of-context executive orders without passing them to supervisors, and then using the unbalanced circumstances he has created to make a well-informed change, making it look like he has solved the problem that he has caused through subversion of a perfectly working system in the first place. Bob has noticed his boss and others often doing this with no other reason to do it other than make a way to highlight their own self-importance on a tedious regular basis, a very visible and nasty method used by many social climbers and totally unnecessary and destructive, and is a very unproductive form of leadership. Bob is further reminded as he meditates of his interactions with his work colleagues and uses the basic instincts he tuned into and gained from his past observations of their newsroom training and performances together, and also with talks with his girlfriends about martial arts, which gave him insightful abilities and raised instincts to enter into understanding, learning and absorbing chi energy. Bob is slowly mastering the teachings of stillness to help mind focus and the balance of his body that balances his mind so much so that he does not notice time go by as he becomes more and more chi-focused. He attains many abilities to not only put his fist through wood panels but also show more focused ability to walk on sand without leaving footsteps and jump without any bend and stretch movement in his legs or body but through a focused bodily shock wave through to his feet and upwards. The monks joke that it is levitation that doesn't last long, but the important thing is how you get up there. Bob keeps saying to himself, "Keep with it, grasshopper, snatch my balls in my hand," and smiling as he remembers the Kung Fu TV series with David Carradine as the peace-loving monk but as an actor transited to Kill Bill with a 5-step martial arts ending before dying for real in a Bangkok hotel wardrobe from self-sexual strangling hardly befitting the martial arts he portrayed so well. The monks don't push any ancient religious or philosophical mandate in any of their teachings as the chi is a natural life energy that emerges as an integrated life force. It is part of the harmony of practical living things and its effects are well known across many Eastern cultural paths and philosophies. The effects of chi are well demonstrated in many areas but particularly it is highlighted that they are not part of the physical science-focused Western medicine that often misses problems by focusing on details. The holistic chi energy is a group effect and therefore not identifiable from its individual parts, nor can be, but only assumed to be connected as it defines referred pain which Western medicine does not. The monks say that chi has become a blind belief to those who do not enter into learning it by many but one has to believe what smacks you in the face, or even if you don't, it will still smack you in the face. The results overcome belief to become an acceptance of a practical living force explanation that can be focused. This is exemplified by some individuals can do this better than others and have become mystics to those who don't have this ability. Some call it a gift but this gift is often a hindrance and can also if misused become a bad influence. Bob is sitting one night in his tree house exhausted but filled with energy and looks in amazement at the date on his hand phone which shows him many days have passed. He has no messages from his girlfriends that saddens his face but he sort of expects it and there is a string of alerts from his boss that makes him smile as he takes out the battery without looking anymore and goes to sleep.